As you're probably aware, the age of self-publishing is upon us. Is it a good or a bad thing? Hello and welcome to the Friday Fantasy Show from the Bottled Imp, exploring the realms of fantasy. My name is Ken Boyter, and today we're going to take a look at the whole world, not all of it obviously, because that's quite a statement there, isn't it? But we're going to take a little look at self-publishing or indie publishing. And I've been sent over the last couple of years, various people have self-published, and they've sent me to review their books. And I'm not going to be hypocritical because I have, published my own my own book I've self-published. Yeah, this is going to be a good episode, isn't it? And so I thought, well, I can't, I want other people to review my work, so I'm not going to be snobbish about it, because obviously there's going to be a bit of snobbery about it. Now, this book here is The Winds of Crowns and Walls by K.E. Walter. And as you can see, it's all kind of printed out from a computer, because this doesn't exist. That's another debate as well about digital and print based. This only exists ordinarily in digital format. That's how you buy it. And I haven't got a Kindle. I haven't got I've got a laptop, but again, I didn't really want to read it off of that. Yeah. So I printed it out and I made some notes. Let's find out what they are. The Winds of Crowns and Walls. What exactly is it all about? What's the setup? Well, the setup is that there is a baby boy that's been abandoned on a hillside by a large rock, and two characters find them. They are husband and wife, and I believe their names are Asgil, if that's how you pronounce it, or Alsgal, and Isabel, and they find this little baby boy. Obviously, they're quite concerned. It's just out in the open. It's been wrapped up in a robe, and it's been left by this rock. And by the side of the rock, by the side is obviously the baby, but on the rock, scratched into the rock, is what looks to be the baby's name, which is, again, forgive me if I can't pronounce it right, Konish, or Nish as he's known. So, being loving people, the husband and wife, they take the baby and they take it back to their house. They've already got a son, but they bring up this baby as their own. Inevitably, there comes a point where the time is right, where the information needs to be passed on about how they adopted Konish. Because obviously sometimes is that dilemma. Do you tell someone that they're adopted, and when's the right time? That's always going to be tricky. This happens to come out, that he gets told, and Konish, he doesn't react well to it. He's a bit freaked by it, so he runs off. And you think, oh, is he going to run away and leave, his family that he's known for X amount of years? But no, he decides it's better to go back, and, he's calmed down a bit. But then, after reflection, he decides that the best thing that he wants to do is to find his natural parents and to find out where he came from and why he was left by the rock. So that's the setup. That's a sort of micro setup. There's the macro storyline, which is about there's a war brewing between an ancient tribe and the present day kings. So that's a bigger storyline going along there. The themes, there's only a couple of themes that run through this book. Obviously the theme of adoption and the theme of identity. Does your past make up who you are? Or is it your future? Do you forge your own identity? Or is it a bit of both? It's probably a bit of both, I guess. It is important. There does seem to be that longing that we need to know where we've come from. We need to know our history. We need to know our parents and our grandparents and where they came from. And I guess that gives us a sense of identity, a sense of place, and a sense of being. So if you're adopted and you don't have that information, there must be that sense of loss. So there's the other theme that runs along with this theme, is that sense of loss, the sense of loss of your own identity and feeling incomplete, and the sense of losing, your family and the parents that you could have had. Now, Nish is very fortunate in the fact that he has been brought up in a loving environment, it's a very small town, very small village, and he seems to have everything that he wants, but yet he still has a longing to go and find out more information about who he is and where he's from. Another theme that runs in here is the build-up of war and why war occurs, and just I guess the horrific nature of war and why people feel it's necessary to want to dominate another race or another species in this case, but I don't want to give too many spoilers away. So that's kind of the setup, that's the themes that run through this. Now, I did say at the little intro that we're going to be looking at kind of the whole self-published. And the reason why I've sort of decided to do this is because when I was writing my book, I wanted my book to be of the highest quality, and I didn't want, if I gave it to a friend to read, I didn't want them to go, oh yeah, that's nice, and they didn't really mean it. And it's very difficult sometimes to look at your own work and have a bit of objectivity. Hopefully you can, and one of the best ways is try not to be disillusional. There's nothing worse than somebody thinking they're brilliant at singing, or brilliant at acting, or brilliant at writing, or whatever it may be, or brilliant at being a plumber, and they're actually not. I think that's worse. I think it's best if you try to look at your work objectively. And the reason why I'm talking about that in conjunction with self-publishing is because self-publishing, there are going to be positives, there are going to be negatives. Positives are obviously if you have got a piece of work that you want to just get out there to the public and you want other people to read it. After all, that's kind of why you write them. Not totally why you write, but that's partly, it's a nice, the other half of the equation is an audience, is a readership. Then you can just go ahead and do it. People like Amazon have made it a lot easier, and digital downloading is obviously a lot easier because then there's no upfront costs apart from your time that you'll be doing, to write your novel. So that's a good thing. So there's speed, so you can write something and then you can go ahead and just publish it. Whereas if you have to go the traditional route, you would need an agent, or if you're lucky, you would find a publisher that doesn't need an agent, because a lot of publishers don't read unsolicited manuscripts, they go through an agent. And that can obviously take a while, that could take years. You might write something and then it gets rejected. So while you're sending it out, you should be working on your next piece, just in case that other bit of work doesn't get picked up. So you could be writing for 3 or 4, 5 years, 6 years and not get anything picked up by a publisher, and that obviously can be frustrating. The other positive is that you have full creative control. So obviously it's your work, you can edit it how you like, you can write what you like. You have full control. You can, if you're talented enough to do a cover and the graphic design, then you have control of that. Or you would be commissioning somebody to do a cover in the graphic design. Again, because you're commissioning them, you would have creative control. But there are the downsides, like anything, there's a downside to it, one of which is editing. And as I say, it's very difficult to self-edit because you're so involved. I mean, it took me on and off 4 years to write my book, so I knew it so well that I couldn't have fresh eyes ever again to it. So what I thought was clear, maybe a clear bit of writing, or it was clear a bit of action, a sword fight maybe that was happening, somebody that had never come across it, never read it before, might get slightly confused by it and say, well, hang on, I thought that character, was over here when you've said he was over here. Do you see what I mean? So there's that editing editing skill that is very, very difficult, hence why there are people that specialise in editing. They can look at a manuscript and they can tell what needs changing, if chapters need reorganising. Like my editor actually suggested starting with a different chapter and I agreed. And there's also the typos. You type proofreading as well, just picking up all the spelling mistakes, picking up any words that are spelt correctly but mean something else, like there and there. You might have put the wrong one in, apostrophes, all the grammar. Again, you as a writer, you may not be up to speed about that. You should be, but you might not be. So a good editor will be able to do that for you. So there are some negatives there as well. And this is why it's an interesting debate, this whole self-publishing. Now, I'm all for self-publishing. I think it's a great idea. If you've got an idea and you want to write it, write it. The next bit, though, is the tricky bit. Is it good? Does it meet standards? And the problem is that if I go to see a film, and it was made on a budget of, $50, let's say, which is ridiculous, I'm still going to compare it to a budget film of $100 million, a blockbuster, because it's almost like it's kind of irrelevant how it was made. It's like, if you've got a can of baked beans, I don't need to know how it's made, and I compare it to another baked bean. It's like I'm just looking at the product. So it's the same when you're reading something. Unfortunately, I'm going to be comparing it to high quality books that I've read in the past. And equally, I'd expect people to judge my book in the same manner and be honest. And that's the crucial thing, being honest. So with this, there were positives in this book. It was an intriguing storyline. It's always intriguing to actually work out your past and that identity crisis that the character has. So he's on a quest, on a mission to find that. That's always very intriguing. I did struggle though with a number of issues here. I struggled with the opening chapter. It wasn't 100% clear what was going on. It was too jumpy and too bitty. There was quite a few characters that were introduced. I just didn't really know who they were and the connections that they all had. I didn't get a sense of drama when it started to unfold, or tension. There was no change of pace, and it was that editing point of view that I'm talking about. When we got to sort of chapter 5, that's when for me it came alive. I was like, okay, this is where the book should have started. So if I was an editor, I would say, you need to start here, and then that, if you want to put the chapters 1 to 4, 1 to 5 in, do that as flashbacks. Because then that's an interesting way of framing that storyline. There was also the need to get across all the senses, not just the visual. So when you're writing, I need to know what the character thinks, what are they smelling, what are they hearing, not just what they're seeing. So use all the senses. So again, an editor would have said that I need to know what they're feeling, I need to know what they're thinking, I need to know what they're seeing, smelling, all the senses. That you need to be putting the reader dead in the centre of the experience. And the pacing needs to be varied as well to create tension. Also, the variation of sentences can help. So if you've got short, sharp sentences, that creates sort of a bit more tension, as opposed to over flowery prose. There needs to be conflict between the characters, and not only between each character, but also the inner conflicts, the dilemmas, the decisions that they're going to be making. After all, sometimes we have to, in real life, we have to make proper decisions about, on the one hand I should do this, on the other hand I should do this. I'm conflicted. If I do this, then X, Y, Z is going to happen. What are the consequences? I need to know about the characters' desires and emotions, and I need to know their needs, and I want to see that tension, because after all, the story needs tension. So for me, I did struggle with that. There was a lot of descriptive narrative in there, which is good, which is fine, and that's good. It sets the scene up, but sometimes it's too much. Sometimes you don't need as much as you think you might. Grammar and punctuation as well. This is where, again, a good editor would come in and say, right, this is where I think you should start. We don't need this chapter. Maybe you need to expand on that character because it's a good character. Maybe we need to expand this storyline here. And it's very difficult to sometimes do that, to see it clearly. In this particular manuscript, there was too many typos in there. And also there was a particular word that was used, which was atop. So when something was atop of something, so I was atop a mountain. And that's fair enough. It's a sort of medieval fantasy type word, atop. It sounds quite medieval, but don't use it constantly. There was about 24, 25 throughout the whole novel, which doesn't sound a lot because it's quite a long novel, but it was bunched up in particular chapters. So on one page, it was used 4 times alone. So there's just something about repeating words, any word, too often, apart from the and of and all of that. But it then starts to grate and starts to break the illusion of what you're trying to do, which is create a story and create characters. There seemed to be random double spacing between the paragraphs. Again, an editor would have done that. Look at how a published book is formatted. Look at the format. That's very important, because you don't want yours to stand out in that way. And sometimes there was strange aligning, so that there was a sentence that just beneath the chapter number, and it took me a while to realise that was actually maybe a chapter heading, because it's like it was centred as opposed to arranged left. So again, it was slightly strange in that respect. And for me, again, a publisher would have picked up on that. And sometimes that chapter heading wasn't there, so it was just the number. So again, consistency. So that is what a good editor would do. So overall, I thought the novel, and this is going to sound really patronising, for me it was a good first attempt. For me, this was like draft 2 maybe, draft 3. You need to work on it, really home it down, really say, is there enough tension, is there enough conflict? Are the characters believable? Is the whole concept believable? And if you're writing fantasy, is the world believable? Do I, although I've created my own rules, have I stuck to my own rules? So that's what you need to ask yourself in there. So it's a good first attempt. There's a lot going for it. As I say, I liked the concept. I think it needed more work on it, more work on the characters, more work on the war storyline as well, and I just think the author would benefit from reading a lot of how to write books. This is what I did. I just soaked myself up in all those how to write books, trying to really improve it time and time again, and think, right, if this was compared to, I don't know, well, let's aim for the top then, a J.R. Tolkien or George R. R. Martin book. How far does it fall? Because obviously that's a very high standard. And if you can get it as close to that as well, then you are onto a winner. I needed to know a bit, I like the mystery of his background. Who is this? I like the mystery of the war that was happening. But again, I don't really want to sound patronising. It needed a lot more work on it. I did enjoy aspects of it. As I say, I did need to, and obviously maybe you should download it. It is, as I say, it's Kindle or Amazon, so it's a download, and I believe it's £2, which isn't a lot of money, to be honest with you. So it's worth a punt. You could maybe read it and then leave some comments to see if you agree with me or disagree with me, because I'd like to know if this is me being too harsh on this. Because as a reviewer, it's like, how harsh should I be? When you review something, and I'm not doing this to be controversial or anything like that. This is my genuine opinion. Unfortunately, as I said, I'm going to be judging something against something else. I'm going to be judging it against the best, and that's very harsh in some respects to do. So yeah, check it out. Let me know what you think. Leave some comments, or you can join our Facebook group actually and leave some comments there. Maybe we can have a conversation about it. Thank you so much for watching. That was The Winds of Crowns and Wolves. There we are, The Winds of Crowns and Wolves. It is a Kindle or digital format one, but I happen to print it out because I don't have anything that would read it in a nice sort of way. That, again, we didn't really talk about the digital print. I personally prefer print. There's something tactile about it. There we are. Check it out. It is available on Amazon, as I say. It'd be interesting to know your comments and thoughts. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed that. And we have got obviously lots of other fantasy book reviews as well on our YouTube channel, so check those out. And we do board games, and we also do film reviews. I have done a How to Write Fantasy series as well, and it was my experiences, so all the pain and all the struggle and the effort that this author has gone through and it's a big achievement to actually write a novel. I also went through as well, so I can share that. We're bonded in that respect. Until next time, remember to keep it unreal, especially if you're a wolf.